Hello, I'm Jerry Schottenbach, pastor at the Lighthouse in your brain sewer. What is the appropriate greeting that we should use for Memorial Day? We say Merry Christmas in celebration of the birth of our King. We say Happy Easter, usually. In Russia, they say Christos Voskres, which means Christ is risen. And the appropriate response is Voistino Voskres, which means truly he is risen. We in America just say Happy Easter. But what do we say for Memorial Day? I've heard people say Happy Thanksgiving. I've heard people say Happy 4th of July. But no one says Happy Memorial Day. At least not anyone who's real sensitive and keen on what that day is all about. Americans are essentially a happy people. I know that when I travel, especially in the early days in Russia. People would immediately identify me as American, and when I asked why, they would say, because you're smiling all the time. Americans are characteristically happy people. Even in the midst of all of our political turmoil right now, we as a people are loath to let go of our frivolities, of our tendency and inclination to, and I'm speaking generically now and rhetorically, but to say, as they say, party hardy. That's an American expression. So along with this characteristic in American culture toward, or inclining us toward reveling, a sin that's listed in Galatians 5:19 to 21, among those works of the flesh that include other things like adultery and fornication and uncleanness and lasciviousness and drunkenness and these sorts of things, which very often are involved in the activity of reveling. And it would seem natural in American culture for Americans to turn Christmas time into a merry-making festive event, and Easter into a time of merry-making, and even Thanksgiving and 4th of July. But what about Memorial Day? If there was ever a day in American holidays that ought to be one we pause to reflect with some sobriety and seriousness on the meaning and significance of the day, I would guess it would be Memorial Day. Now, my son has a pet peeve with regard to Memorial Day. He is a vet, and he saw some serious action in Afghanistan. He was shot at often. He endured multiple missile attacks at the place where he served there. But he came home. Others did not. He is sensitive to the reality and the sobriety of that day. To him, Veterans Day is what he would call his day. But Memorial Day belongs to those that we buried, or whose bodies were blown into so many pieces there was nothing left to bury. And I don't mean to be grossly graphic, but I do intend to make a very important point. Memorial Day is a day to pause and reflect on the sacrifice that has been made for our liberties and the security secured for us by their sacrifice so that we could live in peace and enjoy our freedom. It's a day to honor those who sacrificed their, what Abraham Lincoln called their last full measure of devotion. It's also a day for us to renew our vows to honor that sacrifice. And what better way to do that than to use our freedom in service to the cause for which they died, liberty. Let us use our freedom to serve the cause of liberty. That's a good Memorial Day resolution. Resolve to use your freedom to serve the cause of liberty for which they sacrificed their own. Now, friends, don't get me wrong. I don't begrudge anyone a good time with family and friends and so on. But can't we take at least some time during the day to pause in our reveling? And as James put it, to let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to heaviness. James chapter 4, verse 9. Is there ever any time in our life to stop and to pause and reflect seriously? Perhaps a proper greeting or parting on Memorial Day would be to follow whatever other occasion appropriate expression we might use with this. Remember,